Um, so the intention is to, to talk about the book, but I think I'll just wax philosophical, some of which will be in the book and some of which won't. I think it's both exciting and depressing that messages like mine have an audience. I talk about really simple things like how to be fulfilled, and like how to do things that inspire us, and how to work for a company that sort of gets the best out of us and makes us feel good while they're doing it. And it's kind of upsetting that people even wanting to hear that, meaning that there's a demand for it. But that also presents the most remarkable opportunity in the world, which means there's an opportunity for us to change the way work is done so that all of those things are not the exception, but rather the rule. It is the exception when somebody says, I love my job. So you meet somebody at a bar, he's like, what do you do? Oh, I love my job. Oh, you're so lucky, right? It's like, that should be something special, is remarkable. And so, the amazing thing is that ability to say, I love my job, I love what I do, is actually not that complicated to find. And not ironically, it has nothing to do with the work that we do. It has everything to do with the people with whom we work. And you don't even have to like the people with whom you work. That's the most amazing thing of all. If you think about it, in the military, there are people who are willing to risk their lives for people they don't even like. We don't even like to give up credit for things, So what is it that creates an environment in which people care about each other so much that they would risk their lives for people that they don't even like, right? Sometimes. This is remarkable to me. Human beings in all their complexity and all of the nonsense and all the messiness, what drives us is kind of simple. And this is what I like to research and learn about and write about, which is if you understand the very basic mechanics of this machine called the human being, it becomes fairly obvious as to what conditions in which the machine will perform well and in what conditions the machine will not perform well. Very simply, our machine is a social machine. We are social animals, and we respond to the environment we're in. That's it. Good people are capable of doing very bad things if they're in the wrong environment. And people who society may have given up on, if you put them in the right environment, are capable of performing remarkable, remarkable things. This is the job of leadership, which is to make that environment. The leader sets the tone, and the tone that is set will determine how we respond accordingly. And again, we are relatively simple in our motivations. If you go back to the Paleolithic era, when Homo sapien first stepped foot on the planet, about 50,000 years ago, there were other hominid species that existed at the same time, but we were the ones that survived. They died. We weren't necessarily the strongest, we weren't necessarily the fastest, and yet we've done quite well. Look at this remarkable world that we've built. One of the huge advantages we had and have is that we are social animals. And things like trust and cooperation are absolutely essential for our survival. They're not just nice ideas. They're absolutely essential. You can imagine why. When we lived in populations that never really got bigger than about 150 people, for 40,000 of the 50,000 years we've been on this planet, we never lived in populations bigger than 150 people. I understand scale presents some inherent problems. But you can understand the benefits of the group living. What it meant was I could fall asleep at night and trust that someone in my tribe would watch for danger. If I didn't trust the people in my tribe, I couldn't go to sleep. And this is not a very good system for survival or performance or anything, any other metric. It's the same at work. When we work with people with whom we trust, I don't need to double check your work. I don't need to see it before it goes out. You don't need my approval, right? When we have trust, we can let people go do their work, and even if they're subordinate, we don't need to double check or approve or anything. Things will happen because we trust them, because we all have each other's backs. We all have each other's interests in mind. The problem with things like trust and cooperation is that they are not instructions. I can't simply tell you, trust me. You can't simply ask people to trust you in your advertising, and you can't simply tell people, I want you to cooperate. Trust and cooperation are feelings, and this is the problem. So the question is, where do those feelings come from? Now again, we are pretty simple in our motivation and our constructions. You can imagine what color should I use? You can imagine what life must have been like in these Paleolithic times. It was a world filled with danger. All of these forces working extremely hard to kill us. Whether it was the weather or lack of resources, saber-toothed tiger, nothing personal, but all of these forces were working together to end our lives. And so, as tribal animals, we worked together and lived and worked amongst people around whom we felt safe. We felt like we belonged. And when we felt safe amongst the people with whom we lived and worked, the natural human response is trust and cooperation. It's just what happens. When we do not feel safe amongst the people with whom we work, however, the natural human inclination is cynicism, paranoia, mistrust, and self-interest. When we do not feel safe amongst the people with whom we work, if our leaders do not make us feel safe, we have no choice but to spend our own time and our own energy to protect ourselves from each other. When we do not fear each other, we naturally work together to face the dangers and seize the opportunities. It's the exact same thing in our modern business world. There are forces that are constant and beyond our control that are working to kill you, right? Maybe I'm exaggerating. But there are forces outside, things like the uncertainty of an economy, the ups and downs of a stock market, a new technology that might render a business model obsolete overnight, your competition that sometimes is trying to kill you. It's trying to destroy that product or put you out of business, but at the very minimum is trying to frustrate your growth and steal your customers. These forces are constant and you have no control over them and never will. The only variable are the conditions inside the organization. And when those conditions are set in a manner that allows us to feel like we can trust and cooperate, we do. This is what leaders are supposed to do. There is an exact definition of leadership, and it is not my opinion. You know, I love all the books that come out and all the articles. What makes a great leader? What are the 5 things you need to be a leader? You need charisma, you need vision, you know, all of these things. I can tell you right now, those things are sometimes useful, but they're not essential. Not everyone has vision. Does that mean they're not allowed to be leaders? You know, some people have remarkable charisma and some people don't. Does that mean they will never lead? Of course, it's all nonsense. You can't manufacture these things. Some people are good strategic thinkers and some people are not. Some people are just naturally good at basketball and some people are not. There are skills, you can get better at them for sure, but you're either a visionary or you're not. These are not things that we can manufacture. In other words, they're not essential components for leadership. There's only one characteristic that I'm comfortable saying that all leaders must have to become leaders, and that's courage. Because leadership is hard, and it often requires sacrifice, and that it will happen, that you will have to put your interests, your comforts, your advantages aside so that others may gain. And that's sometimes really hard. In fact, standing up for others may mean that you might get your head chopped off. You know, a leader sometimes loses their job because they did the right thing, right? That comes with significant risk. The choice to be a leader comes at significant risk. And this is why not everyone chooses to be a leader. Leadership has nothing to do with rank. It has nothing to do with the title you have on your card. Leadership is a choice. That's it. I know many, many people who sit in the senior echelons of a corporation and they are not leaders. They are authorities, and they have authority, and we do what they say because they have authority over us. But we would not follow them. I know many people who sit at the bottom of organizations who have no authority, but they are absolutely leaders. And the reason they are leaders is because they have made a choice. They have chosen to look after the person to the left of them, and they have chosen to look after the person to the right of them. It doesn't always mean they have to sacrifice their interests, but when it really counts, Sometimes they choose to sacrifice their interests because it's in the interest of the person to the left and to the right of them. This is what leadership is.